Hello again, Steve here with a few comments to weigh in on what I think makes a robust and strong economy. I had a couple of comments going back and forth with one of the YouTube commenters, and I appreciate that, by the way, the comments. Gets me thinking, gets me hearing about other people, other people's perspectives, and so on. It's great. Now, I would preface this by saying I'm no economist, right? I'm just adding my comments to the mountain of comments out there in the world about economics. Now, what I would say makes a great economy, historically and also logically, or a strong economy, is maximum amount of freedom, right? I would preface that by other things, which I'll mention later. But that's in a short comment, that would be it. The maximum amount of freedom. When people have freedom, they will freely trade. Because to me, economics sometimes gets confusing because it's wrapped up in some sort of academic thought process. Whereas what it really is, what really matters, at least to me, is whether or not I can freely trade with somebody else. If I have a pen and I want to trade it with somebody else for whatever they have, and I can do that, then I can have a free trade of ideas, of things, of values, whatever it is. And if many people can do that, then we have a free trading and a beneficial, mutually beneficial situation for people, because it's done voluntarily. And all capitalism is that there are people who deal in the storing of credit to make it available. So if I want to buy this and I don't have what you want, well, I can go get it from somebody else through making some other kind of a deal, who's somebody who has the capital for what you want, the capital that you want for this. I can make a deal with somebody else for it. Once I have it, then I can give it to you and we can exchange. And that's a form of capitalism. It's involving more people in the free trading. And of course, even money becomes just a commodity. It becomes a commodity which is used to store value. It's like a pressure vessel, if you will, for compressed air or whatever, which is used to temporarily store that energy, then can be used later on. That's all it is. I don't think it has to be concocted in any other way. Now, so what I would say is maximum amount of freedom, but what does it take then to have maximum amount of freedom? Well, I would say, by looking at the world and what makes sense, is you have to have a fairly intelligent population, right? First of all, because you have to, look at really small children who are not very intelligent yet. They have a hell of a hard time, delaying their gratification, right? In order to build up equity, in order to organize, in order to plan and all this sort of stuff, you have to be able to delay momentary gratification for long-term satisfaction. So that's important. And you have to have a good mix of, shall we say, what was it that I wrote down there? A balance of agreeableness and sort of impatience. Because there are times, we're dealing with so many different kinds of people. Sometimes in an initial approach, it's great to be agreeable. But at a certain point, if somebody wants to rip us off, we have to be not so agreeable, right? So it's good to have that balance. So if everybody was completely agreeable, or if everybody was incredibly impatient, then, or if everybody was completely foolhardy, if everybody was completely cautious all the time, then you wouldn't have any movement. It's good to have a little bit of both, or at least be able to move into either one, at least a number of people, because it's a constantly changing. We can't really predict what other people are going to do. We have to be able to react to people as we make deals, because that's where maximum amount of freedom comes from, is the ability to constantly make deals with other people in the trading process. Now, the other one that I just thought of today, and it seems to make sense, of course, is rule of law, right? Universal and predictable rules of the game, right? So everybody who enters the marketplace of a given economy, if the rules of the game are the same for me and the same for you and the same for everybody else, then there's predictability. And if people can rely on those, then there's a trust to go forward. Nobody wants to put out a lot of effort and a lot of their saved up resources or whatever into a situation where it's completely unpredictable, where they could lose it all. It could all be taken away, it could all be stolen or whatever. That is a recipe for terrible economy because it's a low level of trust. So we could put that down as another one. High level of social trust. And that would go hand in hand with this predictability of rules, because everybody agrees to them. If people are constantly not saying that they'll agree with them, but their actions are otherwise, then the society has low level of trust because nobody's living by their word, right? The other one too that I think is huge is universality of, which plays right into this, by the way. It's universality of morals. In other words, everybody in the game is seen as an equal, is seen as having equality of opportunity. And the reason I think why Northern Europeans succeeded so well in the free market and in freedom in general, where others have failed, is because the very basis of most strains of Christianity is universality of opportunity within that moral framework. In other words, the concept in Christianity is that Christ is in everyone, or at least potentially. It doesn't matter what your race is, your creed, whatever it is, it's there. And the opportunity to join that group is always there for you. In Christianity, they have different types of baptism, for example. And baptism is the ritual rite into the organization, if you will. I'm not speaking in favor of it, whatever, I'm just making a comment here. And one of them is baptism of desire. So it's like, I desire to be part of this universal way of thinking, and therefore you are, right? Other religions don't have that. And I think this played out as a huge effect on the mindset and the way that people operated amongst one another, and the social trust that was then therefore set up. If you take, for example, Judaism is not universal. You have the Jew and you have the Goy, or whatever it is. And they don't, even back in the day when they had their rules and regulations, there was different rules and regulations. It wasn't universality of rules and regulations for the Jew and the Goy. Same with the Muslims today. I mean, Muslims, I think they can never be successful the way they operate, the way they, as a society, because to the same extent, because you don't have universality. It's not the same for everybody. There's the Muslim, and then there's infidels, and they have different. There's not the same requirement morally demanded of a Muslim towards an infidel as it is towards another Muslim. Whereas in a Christian context, there's the same moral requirement by a Christian to anybody who's not a Christian. And the same goes, and if you look at the history of it, I mean, in modern times, anyways, the last several hundred years, I don't know of an example of a successful, in terms of the standard of Western, successful Muslim society. I would say the same for Judaism. Although the thing about Judaism is the Jews are very intelligent, yes, but where have they succeeded on their own? I don't know if they have. You could say, okay, Israel is a success. Well, is it really? I mean, billions of dollars are pumped in there from the U.S. every year to prop them up, and of course they're pretty much a nuclear society, an insular society. There's not many more than just Jews there. But most of the time what Jews do is they go into, the diaspora they would follow successful societies and get into the successful societies and work within the successful society. But that's not them running it, right? They're not. It's not the majority. I rather doubt that if Jews were to run a society based on the separation of Jews, we're the chosen people, you guys are not, and so on, it has this, first of all, it has a tendency to alienate everybody else. And the setting up of different rules for different people is just a recipe for corruption. And it always has been. So I would say that economies work best in basically in freedom. And freedom is laissez-faire. And this is why I enjoy so much the Austrian school of economics, which is basically laissez-faire, minimum government possible. I don't agree with Maynard Keynes, of course, and I do have my issues with some of the things this gentleman sent me to do with you know, the economy, like what drives an economy and so on, and government being an important part of it. I disagree fundamentally. Government is a leech, a parasite on economy. I don't believe that there is a private sector and a public sector. There is no public sector. That's like, the public sector is like the parasite. It's not a sector of the economy. It is a negative sector, if you will. It's not an adding to sector. It's a parasitic sector. Anyway, that's just an aside. But I just want to make the point here today that the universality of morality is very, very important for freedom. And when we have freedom flourishing, especially when we have the other things like high levels of intelligence, which I think is necessary to have freedom anyway. So I don't even know if that's necessary. But you can have high intelligence and not universal morality. And I think that's a problem as well. So if you have high intelligence and you add to that universal morality, you have the possibility for freedom, which is what happened in Europe, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, and the massive wealth that we have in the world today is a result of, I would say, that the Christian ethic, largely intelligence coupled with the Christian ethic, which maybe was necessary for the Christian ethic. And as a result, we had universality of morality. And it might be, I would say that is significantly important, which is often left out in these discussions. And that's my few cents worth to this. If you like what I'm doing, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I love the comments. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. Bye for now.